Hello. I'm like looking for something, and of course I can't find what I'm looking for. So I guess I'm gonna have to do without. No, I found it. Alright, I couldn't find my lighter because I did have this. And then I just found my lighter, but I'm like, it is time for a smudge. Man, this energy around, I'm like, Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, Mars is into something or something really soon. And I'm like, do we really want all of those energies? Yeah. So here's some smudge. Embrace that. Because I was like, that energy is something weird. Like, totally weird. So I thought, well, let's do a reading. And I'm using the Inner Wisdom Compass deck. Okay, much better. So in this, what we're going to do then is shuffle this deck up. I'm going to do a clearing there. And then let's get a little guidance. And how are you doing this evening? Okay, those are sticking out. Okay, this one keeps sticking out. This is that Inner Wisdom deck. What's it called? Inner Wisdom Compass. So when you need a little direction, where are you going? Where do you need to go? How do you need to go? What do you need to do? Oh, sorry. Don't go away. We had several that went flying out of the deck. So I was like, so we got some chatty going on. Okay. Interesting. Okay, there's that. Is there anything else we need to know? Okay, well, nothing else came flying out, so I'm going to roll with what we have. And, let's see what the energy is coming in with. Okay, so that's the deck that I'm using, is the Inner Wisdom. And that first card that we have here is Desperation. And when I'm looking at that, it is upside down. That's the energy coming in. And I'm going to say the first thing that came to my mind is that it's not as bad as it seems. Everything is not as bad as it seems. That desperation, I'm going to say, is a little bit overplayed, but things are not as bad as it seems. Now, the obstacle is in the Wisdom card, and it's upside down. And when I'm looking at that, I'm like, we are all a little bit clueless. We are all a little bit clueless. There's some things that are new as an obstacle, and we're not really sure on how to manage through that. And then we're not the only ones. Okay, so this is what I'm going to say when I'm looking at these three cards. Desperation upside down, Wisdom upside down, and then, whoops, over here we have Unique upside down. And I'm like, the message there is pretty straightforward that right now energy is in a very chaotic place, but it is not as bad as it seems. We're looking at it almost like, oh my God. And it's really not as intense as we would like to give it. We want to rate it as in, a 10 over a 10 as being how uncomfortable is it. However, it's not as bad as we think it is, or the way that we want to look at it. Now, the cards that are coming up on this next row, it has a little bit, or has a lot to do with how are we facing this? How are we looking at it? And when I see vices upside down and then headstrong as the obstacle, I'm going to just keep it as real as possible for you. And this is probably going to offend some of you, but some of you are not taking accountability and responsibility in the roles that you play in the minutia in your life. That you are downplaying your efforts, whether they be over dramatical, oh yeah, really dramatic, over dramatic, or if they are lackadaisical. You're almost like, oh, I have nothing to do with the misery going on. In essence, you do. When we look at this headstrong, and then and we look at that headstrong is you're blocking yourself. You're keeping yourself in that loop of negativity that you are, you're not taking an accountability or a responsibility in moving forward and getting out of that negative over, melodramatic loop. Over here is delay, and I'm going to say that's a pretty straightforward, that you're kind of going to be stuck in this loop, and you're going to have to do some work, okay? I'm already looking at this next card, and I'm like, oh God. We're going to be kind of uncomfortable. This is an evening of uncomfortableness. Oh, damn you, Mercury retrograde. Damn you, Venus retrograde. And most importantly, why is Mars showing up in the picture here? Why is Mars showing up in the picture? Well, Mars has a lot to do with... Mars and Mercury don't need to be together. Mars, Mercury, and Venus, yeah. Whew. Take out the trash. So you're reluctant to clear out some of your minutia. You're kind of, and I don't want to say wallowing in your pride, but you're kind of wallowing in your pride. And it's time for you to get out of that vibe and focus on something outside of self. Focus on something outside of self. Now, one thing that I just caught when I looked at this guarded, and the first thing that came up was that a lot of times we do become very, what I'm going to call self-centered, but it's not always a negative thing, and sometimes it's a positive thing. Sometimes we can become so much into ourselves and distancing or cutting off from other people that in order to protect ourselves. And that's what I'm feeling here but I'm seeing, when I'm seeing this, is that even though you have disconnected from people or put up these big walls in between you and situations, that's not always a good thing, because those emotions are still tied. That frequency is still all tied up into that, and it's still existing. We haven't released it. We haven't let it go. And that's what I'm looking at in this line right here, is this take out the trash upside down, self-centered in the obstacle upside down, and then guarded in the help upside down, straightforward for me is saying, hey, you're not dealing with the things that you need to deal with, and this is that perfect opportunity. Astrologically speaking, it is the perfect opportunity to clear out some of that garbage going on in your life, or the way that you are perceiving some of these things going on in your life. And this next insight is pretty deep and pretty interesting. That's my word, interesting. And that first word right there is conquer. And so we're going to overcome these issues this week, these things that we've been lackadaisical or maybe in a denial or projecting out on somebody else. We're going to actually overcome them and be in a place that we are good with the way that we feel, and also that we're in harmony with the positive energy on that. So that's really important. You're not very confident, so there's some confidence issues. The one thing that did come to my mind on that right there was on that where it says the confidence upside down, is it's more about a fear of failure and a fear of the way that people will perceive or look at things. And one of the helps, and you'll see, is upside down, and so it's really not going to be a help. Sometimes you got to get out of victim mode. You're not always the victim. Sometimes you're just, and when I use the word collateral damage, I don't mean that in an ugly way, okay? Just to clarify, but sometimes we're just collateral damage. We're really not a victim per se, but we are a part of that process. Now, I do see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Thank God. That's on this next row here, and let's flip to that real quick. The first card we see here is Be Patient. And the one thing that came to my mind when I saw that on that Be Patient had to do with we want instant gratification. We want things to happen in the here and now and happen right now. And this is saying that, some of these things have taken a while to brew in, and they're going to take a while to brew out. You have to be patient. But more importantly, I felt like consistency was going to be a very important factor. And that's what I get here when I'm looking at this move on and it's upside down. And what I felt on there a lot more intensely was that it's a card about being consistent. And that is the problem. Is that, and I'm going to say it like this. So let's say you and your lover are breaking up. You guys have probably been on the breakup mode for a while, but it's now that final moment. But you end up breaking up. They move to their own place, but you guys continue to hook up. You really haven't broken up, okay? You really still are together energetically. You're still tied to each other. And it's something that you need to work on. You need to process that through. And more importantly, be consistent. You either want to be with them or you don't want to be with them. And if you don't be with them, you have to consistently not be with them. That's what these two cards right over here are talking about on that move on upside down. And then that suck it up upside down, I'm laughing at that one. I'm really laughing at that one. Suck it up, buttercup. We all make mistakes and we can't always have things our way. Now that you know that what you are going to do about it. Okay, so this is that suck it up card. You're reluctant on here. You're a little bit on the reluctant side to put your game plan together. Sometimes you want to kind of go with that flow. I'm just going to say what I'm picking up on that card is that you're going to have to put conscious effort into placing the energy that you do want and going through this process. And I'm the last line is gonna make you laugh, okay? But probably not the kind of laugh. The first card of the very last line here, you'll see is comfort, but it's upside down. So I'm just going to point blank tell you, this is not going to be a comfortable time. In fact, it's going to be very uncomfortable, and you probably have a couple of curse words or angry things that you probably want to release in a more positive manner. Like I said, it is not going to be comfortable. It's going to be very uncomfortable. You're going to have conversations that you really just don't want to have. Okay, this is not a time to go within and kind of detach and do your sabbatical. This is a time for you to get in there and get your hands dirty. To get your hands dirty. And, I'm meaning that metaphorically. No, you cannot be doing anything, dirty through there. But this is a time for you to really be doing some work on setting the stage for what you want your future to be. And then that memories card right here, that's that last card. And that memories card is going to be talking to us about putting some of these things in the past and looking at the positive aspect, okay? And I had this conversation with somebody earlier today, and what we were doing is we were talking about the perspectives of like when you let something go and or something fades away, something dies off, whatever, that we tend to want to have the good memories of that relationship or that experience. It's like, what do you want? What's your takeaway on life? And you want to, most people, we want to focus on all the things in our life that bring us joy. And this reading is about having to confront some of those demons, and I'm meaning that word very metaphorically, and working through those, releasing those in order to get to the point where you can start modifying exactly what you want and fine-tune tweaking that to the exacts of what you expect in your life. So yeah, expect some uncomfortableness, but as you'll know, mentioned a couple of times in the reading, you're going to weather just fine.